The bill passes.
Senate Bill 235, Sexually Explicit Content Policies on Parental Notification of Instructional Material.
Chair recognizes Senator Hashmi, the senator from Chesterfield.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that SB 235 pass, and speaking to that motion.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I find myself in the very odd position of actually bringing a bill and defending a bill that I had voted against in the 2022 session. This is a bill that was carried by one of our former colleagues that sought to restrict the issue of material in our schools. I spoke against this language because I feared the direction that we were going in the Commonwealth, the direction that we actually saw come to pass, and that is the direction of book bans and censorship. And what we are trying to address now is taking that same language, the language that we passed in 2022 that many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle voted on. In fact, all of my returning colleagues supported this bill. It was focused on parental notification. It was focused on parental notification, and there was an enactment clause that we specifically added to that legislation that said that in no circumstances would this legislation be construed to allowing for the banning or the censorship of materials in schools. But in fact, the direction has gone elsewhere. Because it was an enactment clause, the language was then not explicit for many of our school boards. They adopted policies on parental notification, the model policies that the bill asked them to do. Many school boards did that. But we also had school boards that went in another direction. We had superintendents that began to actually remove books from school libraries. And we've seen many examples of that across the Commonwealth. So this legislation just simply puts that enactment clause back into the language of the bill. So it makes clear that parental notification is important. It's there so that parents have the opportunity to understand what it is that their children are reading. And it also makes clear that censorship and book bans are not to come as a result of parental notification. We're talking about two different things, parental notification versus censorship. This is the exact same legislation that was passed in 2022. It simply restores the enactment clause. And with that, Madam President, I ask that the bill pass.
The question is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor?
Madam President, would the senator yield for a question?
Well, Senator Hashmi, rise and yield for a question. Senator yields. Senator Head has the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. I'm a little confused by the statement that was just made and wonder if we could get some clarification on that, and would ask the senator if it is the same language that was in the previous bill, then why do we need to have another bill? Or if there are differences in the language, if we could have some direct understanding as to what exactly is different this time, because she said repeatedly that it's the same as what was passed before, and yet we have a bill again. So that seems a little confusing to me.
Senator Hashmi has the floor.
Madam President, I would respond to the senator by pointing out that the enactment clause has been added back into the legislation. It's been added into the actual language of the bill. It is no longer an enactment clause. It is the same language that says nothing, and this begins on line 24, nothing in this section, any model policy or amendments thereto adopted by the department will, and I'm just going to skip through it, shall be construed to permit the censoring of books in any public elementary or secondary school. This was an enactment clause that was in the previous legislation.
Okay. Thank you, Madam President. Speaking to the bill.
The senator from Botetourt has the floor.
Yes, thank you, Madam President. I just would point out this legislation has come through and been talked about a lot. If you are of the opinion that nothing ever should be prohibited from appearing in an elementary school or middle school or even high school library, that there's no content that should ever be restricted, then this would be okay. But with the language and the changes that the patron has just explained, this now does prohibit a school board from taking action that would remove something that is just totally egregious. And you may call that censorship. That's good parenting in my mind. You might call that a book ban. There's nothing that ever, in any case, prohibits students from being able to acquire this information, even bringing the books like this into school of their own, of talking about it, of sharing it, just simply that it's not there in the school libraries. And that's a big concern that I have with this clarification really undoes a good portion of the legislation that was passed last year. So just need everybody to be aware of that. Thank you, Madam President.
Chair recognizes Senator VanValkenburg, the junior senator from Enrico.
Speaking to the bill.
The senator has the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I'm going to rise to disagree with what I just heard, because what happens in schools right now is that every locality has a policy that they can put in place that can be as rigorous or as lax as they would like about how to take books out of school. And I don't think most people have any concern with that idea, that a parent sees a book they don't like, they challenge it, it goes through the process, it's taken from the school. This bill does not change that. What this bill changes is the fact that localities, as people in this body and the other body warned last year would happen, is this makes sure that localities in the dead of the night, which is what happened on a Friday night in a county around here where they took 75 books off the shelf with no process at all, which takes away my kids' right to read a book that they want to read. You know, we're talking about Kurt Vonnegut was taken off the shelves, right? This prevents a school board from doing that. So if you want to have a process where parents can challenge a book, go through a process, that book can be pulled, but a locality cannot just take books off a bookshelf in the middle of the night, you should vote for this bill. But if what you really want is for a locality to be able to yank books in the middle of the night off a shelf, taking away your rights as a parent to dictate your kids' choices, right? I want my kid to read Kurt Vonnegut, personally, right? Well, then vote against the bill. This bill is stopping localities from ripping books off the shelf with no process, no rigorous process to determine whether or not they should be taken off or not. So let's not mistake this. This is not about getting, this is about helping parents. This is not getting in the way of parents. Thank you, Madam President.
Chair again recognizes Senator Hashmi, the senator from Chesterfield.
Thank you, Madam President. Just to reiterate, this particular legislation, the section of the code is focused on parental notification. It clarifies what the model policy ought to be. It says that school divisions can actually have an enhanced policy around parental notification. Because this is a section that deals with parental notification, this is the kind of restriction that we need to have so that it doesn't get translated into banning books. Those are two entirely different things. And I would just remind my colleagues, if you voted for this language in 2022, I would assume you're voting for the same language again in 2024. Thank you, Madam President.
The question is, shall the bill pass? Those in favor of passage will record their votes aye. Those opposed, no. Are the senators ready to vote? Have all the senators voted? Does any senator desire to change their vote? The clerk will close the roll.
Ayes 22, noes 18.
Ayes 22, noes 18. The bill passes.
Senate Bill 236, aggregate